Tánaiste Eamon Gilmore, thank you very much. There's various opinion polls out in the last 48 hours which indicate that your party is heading for an electoral wipeout, particularly in the European elections. Why is this happening?
Well, that's not what's happening. The opinion poll that's out today puts the Labour Party in contention for two seats, Lorraine Higgins in Western Midlands and Emer Costello in Dublin. And all of the polls indicate that Emer Costello will be competing for the third seat in Dublin against Fianna Fáil. So on Friday, people in Dublin will have a very clear choice between voting for the party that got us into the crisis or voting for Emer Costello representing the party that's getting us out of the crisis. And bearing in mind that around 1/3 of the electorate have yet to make up their mind, this election campaign is going to go all the way to 10 o'clock on Friday evening. The day we went into government, we knew that we had a major challenge to undertake. We inherited a set of economic circumstances that were the worst that any incoming government had to deal with in the history of the state. We knew from day one that that was going to be challenging, that it was going to be difficult, that there were difficult decisions that were going to have to be made. We faced up to that challenge. We could have walked away from it. We faced up to it, and as a result, the country is now out of the bailout. When we came into government, the country was losing 7,000 jobs a month. It's now creating 5,000. I think so, yes. I think because the recovery, while it's happening, has not yet penetrated into the lives of people. And that's the next phase of what we have to do. And that's why last week I talked about the necessity for recovery and for renewal. And what I mean by that is that families in this country need to be able to look to a better future. Renewal for me means if somebody doesn't have a job, that they have a prospect of getting a job. Renewal means a family where somebody has had to emigrate, that they have an opportunity of returning. Renewal means if you have a job that you can look at the prospect of either having a better income or getting a promotion or getting a better job. People who have difficulty accessing housing, that they can access that housing. And that's the next phase of what we have to do. What we had to do in the first 3 years was we had to stabilise the economy. We had to see the economy turned around, see growth again, see jobs being created. What we now have to do in the next phase of it is we have to see that being experienced in people's lives, in their pockets, and in their homes.
Okay. Does that mean a second programme for government then, perhaps after the general elections, after the local elections?
No, but it does mean that there are issues that now have to be addressed. And I think
what are those issues?
Those issues.
And why do you think that the government has, in Pat Rabbitt's own words, perhaps, needs to get a grip? It's kind of lost its way, particularly since the Troika left.
Well, I think we've had a bad couple of months.
Why?
I think that I think to some extent the agenda has been set for us. I think a lot of the controversy, for example, around the Garda Síochána and justice issues and so on, I think has certainly been very frustrating for us, and I think has probably deflected from what our core mission is, which is about creating jobs and bringing about the economic recovery. So I think that what we have to do now is I think we have to refocus on that. The first priority is to continue the effort to get jobs created and to see that recovery, to see those jobs also spread around the country. One of the things that I hear as I travel around the country, whether it's in Waterford or Galway or Cavan, are people saying, well, yes, we know that jobs are being created, but there isn't a regional spread. So we have to see a regional spread in that. Secondly, I think that people who suffered in terms of their incomes during the recession need to see a prospect of their living standards and their incomes improving. And then there are issues that have to be addressed, like, for example, the issue of housing. Somebody, for example, who bought their family that bought their first home at the beginning of the crisis, or as we were going into the crisis, and who now need to move on to a larger home. People who have difficulty buying a house or renting a house. Those are the issues that now have to be addressed.
A lot of people have brought up this leaflet here. Now, you're familiar with this leaflet.
Yes.
People see that leaflet and they think that's just another politician who's a hypocrite. He was once against water charges and now he's for them.
Well, what I was against then is what I'm against now, and that was a flat charge that took no account of the circumstances of a family, the amount of water you used, whether you had an illness or your ability to pay. What is being introduced is very different. There will be no flat charge. payment for water is purely on what is being used, which will encourage conservation and enable households to reduce their bill. There is an allowance for children.
To the pin of their collar at the moment, and water charges are just another tax on workers. People can't take anymore. That's a lot of what I'm hearing on the doorsteps from candidates who are out there. Is that not what you're hearing as well? People angry about water charges?
Yes, I am. And what we have to do, clearly, is we have to ensure that there is a fund that enables us to have a reliable supply of water into the future. And what we have constructed is a charge whereby it's purely on the basis of usage. So it will encourage conservation. It will enable people to reduce their bill. We have provided for allowances for children so that family circumstances are taken into account. We've provided a further provision for people where there's illness and where there's extra water that has to be used.
A lot of people have absolutely no more to give.
I am in no doubt about the fact that the people are at
so how are they going to pay
are put
They're
to
going to get a bill next year, and they're not going to be able to pay it.
Well, people are put to the pin of their collar, and that is why we have to move on with the creation of additional jobs. That is why we also have to ensure that we address the issue of incomes, that we address the issue of improving living standards. We are now, as a result of what we've done in the last 3 years, we are now at least have built a platform from which we can look forward. If we hadn't done what we did in the last 3 years, we would probably, as many people predicted, be into a second bailout with the prospect of 30% reduction in public expenditure and payments and so on. So what we have done over the last 3 years is we have stabilised the situation. We have now built a platform for recovery. We're seeing jobs being created again. I want to see them being created at a faster pace, and I also want to see people having improved living standards. We have to bear in mind that we have come out of the worst recession that we've had since Ireland won her independence.
Okay. Just to go back to the election briefly, what's a good? I know you've declined previously to put a number on it, but quantify what's a good election for Labour on Friday and next week when we get the results. 2 MEP seats and maybe, or 1 MEP seat even, and maybe how many councillors?
Well, I've never made a prediction about numbers of seats going into an election. I'm not going to do that.
You must have an idea.
I'm not going to do that now. Well, what we're aiming for is very clear. We have 3 candidates in the European elections, and our objective is to try and get all 3 of them elected. We have 190 candidates in the local elections, and our objective is to get each of those elected. I think everybody realistically expects that you don't get all of your candidates elected in an election. No, I'm not going to make a prediction. I never have. What we are doing is continuing to work to support each of those candidates to see that they're elected. And in the local elections, I think the important thing here is that this is about electing the city and county councils that will govern the cities and counties of this country for the next 5 years, make very important planning decisions, make very important decisions about commercial rates which will affect investment, and therefore I think it is important that those councils have a Labour voice on those councils because of the record of Labour in local government over many years. The Labour Party has a very proud record in local government, a very proud record for good planning, never been in anybody's pocket, never been bought, always working in the public interest, and also a record of running cities and counties so that they will attract investment. And when I hear around the country people saying to me, well, yes, we're seeing some recovery, but we want to see some of that investment coming to this part of the country, one of the things that will determine that is the quality of the council that is elected on Friday.
Would your priority be to perhaps promote fresh faces to Cabinet? Is it a feeling that the Labour Cabinet ministers need some fresh faces in there, some younger faces perhaps?
Well, the issue of the composition of the government is something that I think will be looked at probably later in the year. We haven't given it any consideration at this point. Our priority is not about the jobs in government. Our priority is about creating jobs for the people who don't have them.
Now. So, would you like to see some of perhaps the ministers of state that you have there, people like Sean Sherrill?
No, I'm not. We haven't. I mean, this is something that hasn't been given any consideration yet. I think I've been very frank about it in saying that I think that, if you take the 5-year life of any government, I don't think it's ever happened that the same people end up in office as at the beginning and in exactly the same position. So I think it is likely that there will be some changes, but it is something that the Taoiseach and I have not yet had a discussion about. I expect it is probably something we will discuss later in the year, and I really don't want to speculate about it until then. In the meantime, Our focus and our concentration is not the jobs in cabinet or who holds what job there. Our concentration is getting more jobs for people who don't have them.
Okay, what about you? Would you like to come home, as it were, as lots of people within the Labour Party would like to see happen? Would you like to move out of the Department of Foreign Affairs?
Well, the job of work that I've had to do in foreign affairs, the formation of the government, was to restore the country's reputation.
Do you get it done now?
This country's reputation. This country's reputation was in tatters 3 years ago. That was clearly having a very damaging impact on the country in terms of attracting inward investment. It was having a damaging impact on the country in terms of our exports, and it also had to be repaired to enable us to renegotiate the terms of the bailout arrangement, which we have done. As I've said many times, I'm not bothered about what position I hold in government. What I'm really concerned about is what government does and what it does to secure the jobs, improve the lives of our people, and I have no difficulty in having that up for discussion later in the year.
Are you going to be the Labour leader in 2016?
Yes, I will.
Will you be running for the general election?
Yes, I am, absolutely.
My job. Will you run in Dundee?
Yes, of course. I've had the honour to represent Dundee for 25 years now in the Dáil. Very proud of that. The job of work that we undertook, the job of work that I undertook at the beginning of the lifetime of this government, was to bring about our country's economic recovery. That job is not yet done. We have a lot more to do. Yes, unemployment has dropped every month for the past 22 months. We're very proud of that. But 11.7% is still too high. And what I intend to do, and what the Labour Party intends to do, is to continue to work to achieve full employment. That's our objective. It's not kind of to have some half measure. It is to achieve full employment, to get people back to work, to improve the living standards and quality of life of people, and we're going to continue with that work.
You were in this floor 3 years ago when there was a lot of talk about Gilmore for Taoiseach. Would you still harbour ambitions of being Taoiseach?
I think every party leader does. I was. Look, I mean, the general election is in 2 years' time. My immediate focus is on the local and European elections next Friday. And between that and the general election, what we will be focusing on is the renewal of government, the renewal of our mission to ensure that we bring improvements to the lives of people that have suffered so much during the recession.
Finally, Tánaiste, have you enjoyed it?
Yes, I have. It's been a huge challenge. Representing the public is a great honour. There is no greater honour that any citizen can experience than to be elected to the country's parliament, as I have been fortunate to have been for a number of years. There's no greater honour for a member of the Labour Party than to lead the party. It has been an enormous challenge over the past 3 years in government. I think we went into it with our eyes open, but that said, it has been a huge challenge. We have worked extremely hard at it. I think there is an added satisfaction in working in government at a time of crisis, when you find your country in a very bad place, turn it around. I have no illusions about the difficulty.
Electorally, though, is it? I mean, electorally, it's not good for
Sometimes you have to do what's the right thing for the country. Sometimes you have to be very focused on what you're doing. And I've always, in all of my life in politics, I've always believed that in working in the public interest. I've always believed in doing the right thing. And I believe that by doing the right thing for our country and for our people, elections look after themselves eventually.
Thank you very much.